Hey Arjun, welcome to the All Walks of Life podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on, man.
Thank you so much, Shan. Thanks for having me. And yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
Right. So something I generally ask my guests before they come on is how have you been acclimatizing, let's say, to the whole COVID scenario? I mean, I think in India, really, where we are, things have started to open up and people are getting back to work. So what's the scene with you?
Yeah. It's strange you asked me that because my daughter is sleeping right now. She's about 14 months. So I was on daddy duties, and the time when she's sleeping is the time when we guys get to rest. So I was reading whatever the articles, and the cases are going up big time in India, man.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the first thing that was coming to me is because during lockdown and when this pandemic hit us, we guys were pretty much quarantining ourselves in our house. And even if the world opened up, we opened up to it a lot later
Hmm.
because of our daughter. And we thought, because she's at such a fragile stage right now, her immunity is not built up. And slowly but surely, we started moving around, we started going out. I started visiting parks to start playing, running, and doing stuff like that. And now this thing has popped up again. And I had a
Hmm.
conversation with my wife like about 2 days back saying, look, I think we need to go back to the old and station ourselves in our house because no one knows what's going to happen. My parents just got vaccinated
Hmm.
and I'm happy for that. But my mother, हिंदी में कहते हैं उनके पैर पे तिल लगा हुआ है, which
Hmm.
means कि अगर आप बड़ों की बात सुनो तो which means that she's always on the move. She's not happy sitting at home. And she's the type who she sits at home for 2 days and she's like, ये मैं क्या कर रही हूँ? What's happening over here? So then she likes going around somewhere or the other. I said, if you're going to be doing all of that, go and get yourself vaccinated. She's like,
Hmm.
no, WhatsApp is saying that these vaccines are not good. This and that is happening. I said, WhatsApp is not a doctor. Stop listening to some idiot on WhatsApp who's circulating shit. So finally, they've got vaccinated. That is over the head. And yeah, just getting used to it, man. From a work point of view, I'm sitting here on a Zoom call with you. I have put on my AirPods. I put on a mic, by the way. I don't know if you can see it. Here you go.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
am technologically challenged. Brother, I am completely technologically challenged. And for someone like me, I think, my love affair with technology, we've grown closer over this last year. I can set up, I can do studio shows from where I'm sitting right now. I do them currently for a football chat show that I do. Cricket shows also happen in the same room. We're going to be doing IPL in this as well.
Oh wow.
So this is the IPL studio, and this is where all the conversation will
First
happen
look.
for the coming season.
Yeah.
Yeah, first look.
So just tell me a little bit about that though. Like, do you enjoy having conversations and just doing your stuff from home? Is it liberating in that sense, or do you like the
No,
fact? Yeah, no.
no, man, no. I'll tell you why. Because first 6 7 months was so you were stuck at home.
Hmm.
First 6 7 months was a little difficult as well because I'm a freelancer. So I don't have a monthly income.
Hmm.
I go by events, whichever events I'm doing. So I'm paid per day. And that sort of suffices for me going forward. Then came a period of 6 months. There was no work. I didn't have a monthly income, and you had to dig into your savings. You have some savings, and that's where your savings come into play. And so we got through that period. Got through that period. We were working on bare minimum, but luckily at that time you're not going out as much, so the spending is not happening as much. You're not buying as much. So your kharcha in that sense is also sort of curtailed a bit. Um, but then work started happening, and my first gig was last season's IPL for CrickBuzz from home on a Zoom call. It was new for everyone, for the people who were producing it, for technologically challenged people like me. You could say like technologically challenged people like Ajay Jadeja, Virender Sehwag. I'll tell you, when we were having our dry runs and these poor guys, because these guys are techno geeks, the guys who do all the production and all the
Uh,
stuff behind, or inko lag raha hai, everyone is on the same wavelength. So he's saying just do control alt delete and this thing will come. And control alt delete is a very basic thing.
yeah.
So suddenly there was silence. And he's like, yeah, control alt delete. They're like, yeah, where have we come, man? And then someone is saying, sir, please hit refresh button. For 10 minutes, we were held up because we didn't know how to do refresh button, right? But everyone's gotten better. Um, it was a little difficult for me because when you do conversations on Zoom, I've got used to it now. At that time, there's a bit of lag, right?
Hmm.
My job as an anchor is more than having a conversation on the spot. That is the job of the two experts. My job is to make sure that conversation has a vibe to it. That is not dragging, right? And we stick to the major points. That is my job. For me to create that vibe in the last season of the IPL was a little difficult initially, right? I did about 30 shows that season. Of the 30 shows, I finally got into the groove by about show number 21, show number 22. And the digital medium, unlike TV, is not at all forgiving, right? So from day one, I was getting abused. I was being told, "Who's this idiot? Who's this joker?" And for all of you people, who think that we don't read comments, क्योंकि हम हैं, we are above all of this bullshit. We are human. We go through each and every bloody comment, right? It's just that you don't respond
Right.
because that's stupid. But you read what everyone's talking about. It's human nature. You want to know what people are talking about you. You're putting your work out there. So it took me time, man. But slowly but surely, I got used to it. Because then after that, I did India, Australia for Sony TV. They put us in a bubble for about 1.5, 2 months. And we were going to studio. So our daily life was hotel, hotel to studio, studio to hotel, hotel to studio, not going out of the hotel at all. And there I realized, man, nothing like studio, having people with you, sitting with you on a couch, exactly a feet away from you. Because then the vibe of the conversation, the body language, you can read these things of people. It doesn't come off as much in Zoom.
Right. So we were talking about Joe Rogan just before we started the conversation. But why do you still read? Why do you still read your comments though? Because like the perspective he puts forward, and obviously he's such a big personality, he gets probably a lot more comments. But the fact is, even you're on these big shows, you're on the IPL shows, you're on these India shows. Like, don't you feel that it's not the best to read comments? Because the way I look at it is the people. I genuinely don't comment as much on YouTube videos. So, and I'm thinking the people who would go and comment there. That's a very small proportion, don't you think? So it's not really representative of your viewers, is it?
That's a good point. That's a fair point. Though you can't ignore those guys because they are watching you. End of the day, they are watching you, right? And if they are going a step further and commenting, then they are invested in some way or the other. It could be, to satisfy some other craving for them, but they are invested in some way or the other. Having said that, I don't care about that, to be honest. I am coming from a purely vain perspective. Brother, who is saying what about me? That is all I was doing. Because you know what? I did TV for about 7-8 years, and I was not in the digital medium. I'm new to the digital medium. It's been about 1.5 to 2 years. So for the first 7-8 years, I had no idea what people were saying about my show. My only feedback was coming from the producer or my family or close friends, right? That was my only feedback. And that is filtered feedback because those people know you, right? They know your mannerisms. So they see what you're doing on screen and they can relate and say, this was not right, this was good. But the actual feedback comes from someone who doesn't know me. He doesn't know my name. He's never met me in life. He just sees me as a presenter and he sees, okay, can he hold this conversation or not? So I used to honestly read all comments for that. कि कौन क्या बोल रहा है, कैसे बोल रहा है. And बड़ी गालियां पड़ी. Creative galis as well. And it's interesting because I don't go through all of them now. There was a phase. My thing is, if I've done a bad show and like I'll be the first one to know that I've done a bad show, then I'll go through the comments. I won't run away from it, right? Going through the show, going through your comments when you've done a good show, you pretty much know what's coming. But once you get used to people chatting whatever shit they want to, it's okay, man. It's part of the game. It's not like someone told me, look, Arjun, we're putting you on the show and comments will be disabled. I know exactly what I'm getting into. So why am I running away from it? Develop a thick skin. You get used to these things. And I've got used to it, trust me. From that first IPL to now, I've got used to it. Having said that, even now, if someone chats shit about me, it does stay with me. Yeah. I remember the guy's username also, like Rohit 2, and the names are these ones also, na? Rohit 210757451. Love Kohli. Huh? These kind of names. But yeah, bro, it's a ongoing process, and I'm fine, man. It's all part of the game.
Not to hop on to the point too much, but like the point I'm coming on to with here is that this is something I've heard. So the thing is that hate resonates with you much more than love does. So if there are like 50
Absolutely.
comments who say that, oh, Arjun, you were great on the show today, great point here, great point there, whatever. And then there's
Yeah,
one
that's
comment
really
saying that,
happened. Yeah.
and then there's one comment saying that, oh, look, your shirt's not fitted well, or whatever. That I'm just being reasonable here. Maybe there's a much more.
You're being very nice, by the way, right now. No, it's not like that.
But
I
you
don't
get
know
my
how much I
point.
can say on your show, but it's like, abe BC, abe sale, that kind of thing. And I'm sorry, I'm going a little off topic.
No,
But
but it's
if
fine.
we
That's what
ever
it's about. Yeah.
mimic these comments, right, the bad ones.
Mhm.
I don't know if you do this. I feel, and I was thinking about this the other day, that whenever we mimic these comments to ourselves, we always go, "Abe, la, 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 la." I don't know why. If you've noticed, "Abe,
Yeah.
sale, ye kya kar raha hai?" Like that kind of scene.
Uh,
So yeah, but you're right. It resonates. It stays with us a lot longer. It's just who we are, man, as human
hmm.
beings.
Hmm.
Um, when we rise up from it, I don't know, but we're all functioned the same way. We're all tuned the same way.
Hmm.
And if someone is chatting shit about us, especially someone who doesn't know us at all,
Yeah. Yeah.
and is seeing us talk about something on air, then it does stick with you. There's no doubt about it. It sticks with you. But the thing is, then the more you see it, the more you don't run away from it, right?
Hmm.
You develop a thick skin, man. You get used to anything. Habit is a crazy thing in life. You pick up a habit, and slowly but surely it turns into a normalcy. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's perfectly fine. I
Hmm.
just read, in fact, Thierry Henry getting off Twitter,
Yeah.
saying that a lot of people are racially abusing and so on. And that's a good point he put out there, because the magnitude of abuse, the higher you go, is the
Hmm.
numbers of people that are coming at you. It can really affect you.
Yeah.
Right now, the numbers I am dealing with are probably like 5 6 people I know. Hi, how are you, Anuj 1245, thank you for abusing me, or whatever, right? Suddenly magnify that into a million. Bro,
Uh,
that's a lot.
hmm.
And I feel the people running these platforms, sooner than later, I'm not saying they have to, they will be made to. Now,
Hmm.
whether you call that as filtering, or whether you call that as because the net, or the digital medium, is always regarded, the one big difference is that it's free space,
Hmm.
it's free speech, say what you want. But kahin na kahin, you will have to bring it in, because at the end of the day, who are you saying it to? I mean, you're on the one hand, you're saying free speech, and say as you want, but on the for human beings only, right? But on
Hmm.
the other hand, the human beings only, no, the ones you're berating over here, the ones you're talking shit about. So kahin na kahin, that balance will need to be brought in. The order will need to be brought in. Right now, it's like khulli choot,
Hmm.
it's the wild, wild west. Whatever's going on, just do whatever you feel. Somewhere, order will need to be brought in, and I'm guessing that's going to happen sooner than later, especially in India, because if you see the failures that the government is giving, my guess is they're going to be uh, looking over a lot of digital content, good
Yeah.
or bad,
Yeah.
but they're getting into it. Trust me. So so
But
so gone are those sacred games kind of shows. Gone
uh,
are those bakwas, and when you hear someone abusing in Hindi, and you're like, wow, bro, I saw this
hmm.
on content and all. I think those days are beyond us.
But how do you think anyone, be it the government, be it these social media platforms, how do they govern? Like, what's the premise? Because like free speech, in my opinion, it's such a, whatever people may think of it, I think it's the primary value we have in society, and how we run society, how we interact with people, and that's how we get things done, be it laws that we have to make, science we have to do, what have you. Really, so like, do you think about how governments or institutions can even like just think about meddling with this thing? Because I think it's yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. See, it's tricky for sure. Um, like I said, the balance is key,
Hmm.
right? You can't see. I know what you're saying. You can't censor everything and
Hmm.
anything, because then a lot of people can misuse it. So, kal ko ji I've shown something where someone has put a gali, or I've done something on a content like Tandav on Amazon Prime.
Hmm.
It was on politics. It was on all that happens behind closed doors. So anyone can say, no, this is not good. So you got to whatever, put it aside. You can't do that. So that is where the misuse comes in,
Hmm.
and this is why the balance बहुत ज़रूरी है. The balance is needed, but more often than not, and I know you're right there, because more often than not, that balance isn't created.
Yeah.
Because when someone is laying down the law, yes, initially you start to lay down the law, But more often than not, you'll see people are misusing the law to their own benefits, to their whoever the people are who put down that law. So how you change that, I don't know, because our country hasn't that evolved right now, man. In
Hmm.
terms of how many people are really speaking out, you hear them on social media, you hear a few of them, but it's a very small number, बहुत ही small number है. And the thing is, since it's such a small number, it's easy to target them,
Hmm.
right? So you can target them as a full horde and take them over, because a lot of people forget all these conversations that are happening on social media and so on. I keep telling people, this is not the sentiment of your country. If
Hmm.
your country existed of 100 people, this is the sentiment of one person.
Hmm.
That is how big our country is. And in terms of the vastness of our country, a majority of those people don't even get onto social media right now.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
don't even have internet
Hmm.
right now. उनके लिए they couldn't care about Twitter and all of that. For them, a lot more things are important. पानी कब मिलेगा, खाना कब मिलेगा, बिजली कब आएगा. These are much more important things in life. So, which is why I don't lay too much importance to social media, what happens on social media, what people say on social media. But yeah, in terms of, I don't know, man, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one. Yeah. How do you do it? For me, the balance is the key. Balance is always key. And because of tomorrow, if you tell Twitter and Instagram, start filtering out content or start filtering out comments,
Hmm.
then why will someone not raise up their hand and say, okay, you need to start filtering out content as well?
Hmm.
I mean, you're filtering out comments. Why aren't you going to filtering out comments? It's part of the same thing, right? The
Yep.
comments are coming courtesy of the content. So if you do that, then how do you manage the balance here? That for me is the key. And I don't think that that balance will be achieved, especially given India's track record with going over the top with
Right.
these things.
Yeah. So what do you think about, like, what are the principles that guide you? Because you make digital content, right? Be it for the shows you make,
Hmm.
even if it's a
Yeah.
sports-based show, because there's still quite a lot of politics in that as well, in the way
Yeah,
it should be
totally.
run out. Exactly. So like, and even you talked about 420 grams, you touched about that. So what's your ideology when you put shows like these out?
So yeah, so that's a good question. So we brought about 420 because Indian football is something I've been involved in for the last 15 years or longer. I originally harbored ambitions and dreams of being a footballer.
Hmm.
I used to play school level, state level football, and I tried my hand at playing professional. But once I got to the highest level, I just didn't make it. So I know the system inside out, but I didn't give up there. I said, "ठीक है, if I didn't make it as a player, I'll get into broadcast." And so I was part of the I League or the NFL. What it was, India's top league was called earlier.
Yeah.
It was called the National Football League. Then it changed to the I League, and now it's called the ISL. So I've been there and seen that entire transition. So whenever I talk about Indian football, I can always say कि पहले ये होता था, now this is there. And keeping both of them in mind, I can give a measured opinion and saying कि, the sky is the limit, fine, but you always need to realize how far back you were and how far back you are right now in world football. So the onus on 420 was that with me and my friend to talk about that. And as luck would have it, uh, this takeover happened where the ISL has come into play, and the I League was the top league. I don't know how much you know about Indian football, but the I League was then shunted to the second division league, and all of these things were happening, transpiring before closed doors,
Hmm.
and not too many people were talking about it. So we decided, at the risk of being shunted,
Hmm.
at the risk of not getting anything from the federation in terms of interviews, because we know all of them. I mean,
Yeah.
we've grown up with these guys. That we will talk about what's happening. So if you see a majority of our shows, we're talking about what's happening.
Hmm.
There are times where I am for the subject. There are times where I'm against the subject, but we're having a healthy debate, right? Uh, Result being that because we lambast the federation so much, they do not respond to any of our emails. We send them mails. Okay, we'd like to do an interview with the coach, who's the Croatian coach right now. We sent about 4 mails, nothing, nothing for the players. So basically, it means that right now, if the Indian team is together and they're preparing for a friendly versus UAE, they are under the purview of the national team, which means we have no access to them. We have no access to them. Only when they disperse and go into their separate clubs, then we can probably talk to the media manager of the club, or if we have personal relations with players, which is what we generally do, we bypass all this bullshit and we just get in touch with the player and we
Hmm.
tell him, bro, come, let's have a chat, have a conversation. And that's that. Now, the point is, was it worth it to do that? any single day, I would say it's totally worth it, because the satisfaction you get, and you can't put a price on it. I can't quantify it for you. The satisfaction that you get by speaking your mind
Hmm.
and putting it out there, that resonates with the people who watch you. And then they get invested in with it. Because you know what? The biggest mistake we do in broadcast, in India at least, I've seen, I don't know what happening around the world, is that we think the guy who's watching you at home is an idiot. उसको जी ये दिखा दो, वो दिखा दो, उसको गोली तो देखना है, ये देखना है, let's just talk about this, right? But they are smarter than you think. They understand when someone is fibbing. They understand when someone is saying something but not putting out the entire picture because you're scared. You know, ki my interest might get hurt in the longer picture. And a lot of people doing that. So that's the scene. With 420 grams, we've seen we have a small family, but we have a invested family. As far as our viewers are concerned, they watch every show of ours. We have long conversations, man, and we're talking about everything. We're chatting shit. We're dissing the federation. We're talking good stuff, whatever, right? And our conversations range on average between an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. We had Chetri on the show once. That went to about 2 hours 15 minutes.
Wow.
And we were seeing, does it make sense to have such long conversations? And then we saw the analytics, and we saw that a majority of our viewers who are watching the show are there for close to 50% of the show, which is great numbers.
Which is what you want, yeah. At least like that's
which is what we want. We want people to be there and enjoy the conversation, and people will only repeatedly keep on coming back and enjoy a long conversation when they see that the 3-4 faces that you're seeing in front of you are being honest. And honest doesn't mean that they have to say exactly what everyone is saying. So if tomorrow you're saying that the way the ISL has been brought into the Indian football ecosystem has hurt the system, or you brought it in a very undemocratic way, you could be saying that, but I could be saying that, okay, great, they've done this in a very undemocratic way, but where was the money prior to this? So the ISL has brought in the kind of money that the football scene had never seen prior to this. So at least the guy knows, okay, so this guy believes in that. This guy believes in that. He's not chatting shit. And the people then have comments, conversations with us, and you know, it's perfectly fine, man. So there is a sense of एक क्या कहते हैं, एक ठंड पहुंचती है अंदर, you know, when you talk like that. And I never used to get that when being on television, man. Because on television, for some reason, you have to toe a very fine line.
It's all corporatized, isn't it?
It's corporatized. Then because if you're for the host broadcaster, the people who are giving you the rights, how much is enough, right? How much do you criticize the player? If you criticize the player enough, sometimes you get calls from players' agents or from the board saying, what are you doing? Why are you saying so much on the player? The person you're talking with, who's the commentator with you, is also always thinking, because all my conversations behind closed doors and on camera are completely different when you talk to these guys, right? And you can understand from their point of view as well. You must always understand from their point of view, because they have a household to run.
Yeah.
They have certain commitments, and it's their decision. It's a personal decision. How much I want to say, how much I don't want to say. I always feel that way, because when I put the mic on someone and I ask him to answer a question, I always consider it a favor. It's not his right to answer back to me, right? So I have taken the question to him. Now, if he wants to give just 50% of what he feels, it's his decision, man.
Yeah.
You can decide whatever you want, but it's his decision. You can't hold it against him. So yeah, lots of these things, man. I think we're very far away from unfiltered, honest, regular, consistent conversations on TV. Though it started creeping into the digital medium, and especially in these podcasts, because that's where people have time to think. Slowly, you know, come up with thoughts, and then कहीं ना कहीं कभी आप बोलना भी नहीं चाहते, निकल जाता है, and then you continue, you know, with that thing.
But what is it about the long form format though? What is it about long form conversation? Because we touched upon Joe Rogan. I think the primary reason why he's so successful is because he just has honest conversations, as you're saying, and he sits down with people for doesn't matter how long, but if they want to get down to whatever they're talking about, the time isn't a requirement as such, which is not what you obviously see on TV in that sense. So is that, do you think, the driving factor for long form conversation, and why your not podcast but your channel is doing so well?
So the channel is not doing well, but लेकिन आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर.
It is
right. We're about 1,700 strong. The aim is to go to 17 lakh strong.
Yeah.
And then from there, the aim will be to go to 17 crore strong. But
See,
yeah,
but
of
Arjun, the
course,
point is that you have 1,700 invested people, though, right?
yeah,
Those
totally,
people come
totally.
back. So I think that's much stronger than 17 lakh, if that makes sense. Because not necessarily
agreed.
when you have a larger number, they stick onto the content.
That is true. That is true. And funny you said that, because I was having a conversation with my fellow podcaster who's with me as the co-creator.
Mhm.
And we were having this conversation only. We were saying that even if it's 17, they're coming back, they're invested guys.
Yeah.
And that is something we should be proud of.
Mm.
But rahi baat on the long form conversation. See, in TV, the thing is you're always, it's like you said, commercialization, man.
Mm.
In TV, if I were to do an hour's show, a 60-minute show, so my slot is for 60 minutes, that means depending on the number of breaks, content has to be around about 48 minutes. So
Mm.
you'll break it into 4 breaks of 3 minutes each. If there are no breaks, then you'll add promos. So that's the thing. So in 48 minutes, you have to do your entire conversation. So you're always sort of running behind the clock, saying ki itna time bacha hai, okay. And in TV right now, we're still running from that aspect. The way TV runs in our country is, so if you've been given 48 minutes of content, I'll try filling in at least 6-7 topics to talk about, rather than saying, okay, let's talk about 2 topics, 24 minutes to one topic, 24 minutes to another topic. We're still running from that syndrome ki saying, no, attention span is not great, which I kind of agree with. Attention span isn't great. So you need to keep on, how do I say, you need to keep on luring in the viewer with something new. तो एक टॉपिक बदला, फिर एक टॉपिक बदला, फिर एक टॉपिक बदला. सो एज अ रिजल्ट हो क्या रहा है, आपको ये प्लेयर कैसा लगा, मुझे अच्छा लगा, आपको ये प्लेयर कैसा लगा, मुझे ये बुरा लगा. There is no comeback, because by then you already said, okay, move on to next player or move on to next game. That is generally what's happening in television. In the digital medium, you have time for it, because and for me it took time to adjust to it, because I was used to TV, and my job on television was to ask a question. So if in a 48-minute conversation I'm asking, say, a question, I've asked you a question, then I can chill, go make my hair, you continue answering, I'm chilling, doing this, that, this, that. I know what's coming up next, bro, move on. But suddenly you move into the digital space and you're supposed to formulate words. You're supposed to formulate sentences. You're supposed to talk, and they're supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be joining each other. That took me time to get used to. I used to ramble a lot earlier when I started 420 grams, but 420 grams kind of got me used to formulating my thoughts and talking for a long period of time, to the point now that I don't let the other person talk. So मैं लगे रहता हूँ, बड़ा, you're on, as you can see. So again, the key is balance, man, because in a long form conversation, you could continue having long conversations, but kahin na kahin you have to think of the viewer and his attention span as well. So the key is, the balance is how much you're putting out, but not much where you're dragging the conversation. So that's where the role of a good producer comes in. The guy who's in my ear. So if I'm doing a Krikba show, I have a producer in my ear. He's saying, okay, Arjun, so we're going to be talking about 1, 2, 3 for a 48-minute show. That's generally the key. We come on after toss. So we have about 30 minutes, no breaks. So it's 30 minutes start to finish. There is no footage. There is only graphics. So we're all chatting between 3 people. At any point, he feels, acha, this is dragging, because he is giving you the outsider's view. See, I will always think I've done a crazy conversation. The expert will always think he's made the most fantastic point, but that's generally not the case. It's the third guy, or the outside opinion who you're doing it for, will give you the honest opinion. So he then says, acha, this is dragging. Yeah, this is not happening, Arjun. Please move on now, find something. Or if the conversation is really developing, what he'll say is, continue with this conversation and we'll drop the other stuff we were supposed to talk about, because I think we've got something here. So you're always shooting in the dark in a sense. You've prepared a few things, and then depending on how well prepared I am, how well prepared the experts are, and you gauge what the expert is saying, and can I probe him a little more? Can I needle him a little more to get something more out of him? And if, because I've done it, you needle a guy, but the guy continues saying the same thing. So then you realize, yeah, nothing's going to come out.
Yeah.
Aap drag karoge isko, you're going to start losing viewers. And so you need to change. So digital is very proactive, man. You have to be very proactive as a producer on digital, because the numbers are there in front of you. So say you have 5 numbers. If your conversation is dropping, you're seeing the number 4, 5, 4, 3. How do I bring it back up to 10? Change, move, do something. So yeah, producer is king. Producers and anchors always have a love-hate relationship because producers feel anchors are only there because of their face and they can talk flowery things. Anchors think, who is this idiot who thinks he's a gyani, he's a nerd on the sport, he's never played the sport, who are you to tell me this? But the two need each other. You can't function one without the other.
I'm guessing like you've already touched upon it a little bit, but with 420 grams, it's probably a little more long-ended, right? So, but what do you have to speak to this though? Like with, let's say, the democracy, like the fact that people are able to consume content whenever they feel like it. So for example, if I'm washing dishes, I can just turn on a podcast. I can put on a YouTube video and I can listen to you talk about cricket. I can listen to some podcasts about whatever I feel like, which is not really the case with TV, right? So what do you make of that though? Isn't it like, even if it's long form, it doesn't matter, because for example, if a person's probably trying to take the metro to work, then he has the time to listen to it and he can probably pause it and then listen to it later.
See, the first thing is, आप assume कर रहे हो, पहली बात. You're assuming that the guy's saying, "Acha, I have 1.5 hours, so let's put on a Joe Rogan podcast and spend my next 1.5 hours doing something." What you're not realizing is that while you're saying he's doing something, in the middle of that 1 hour, something might come up. In the middle of the first 40 minutes, something might come up. Someone's child might wake up. You might have to drop everything and suddenly go over there. So you never build content and you never go into a show thinking that whoever's joining you for the show is joining you start to finish.
Yeah.
That's never happening. You're always watching it as per your convenience, is what you were coming to. And most people I've seen, when they see you, they don't see you start to finish. So they say, okay, we consumed 15 minutes here. Acha laga. Baad mein I'll consume another 10 minutes there. To assume that in a 60-minute show on digital, everyone is going to watch all 60 minutes is a bit too much.
Yeah.
Maximum for a good show that has done well on the digital medium where you're having a conversation or an interview, if people have stuck around for about half the show, and it's called time spent, that's what it's called. It's not the numbers. Numbers are so fudgy. Numbers are so unrealistic. They show you something completely different. Time spent tells you everything. So if the time spent is for at least half the show, then you've got something. आपने कुछ किया है. आपने अच्छा content डाला है. Like we started putting our podcasts on Spotify, and it's strange. I don't know how these things work, man, because we did an interview with Sunil Chhetri, the most sought after man in Indian football.
Yeah.
And he ticks all boxes, right? He does it on the field. He has following. And when you put a mic in front of him, he can formulate his thoughts and talk as well. You know, because at the end of the day, hygiene matters. What people don't realize, you might be the best player, the best cricketer, but जनाब अगर आपके सामने mic आया आपने हाँ हु किया, I will possibly bear you for 5 minutes and I'll shut you off. So all of these things have to come together. So we did a podcast with Sunil Chhetri and a former India captain called Renedy Singh.
Yeah.
And 2 hours, 15 minutes. So I thought on Spotify, this is going to kill it. The average time spent on that podcast was 2 minutes, 35 seconds. 2 minutes, 35 seconds. I just didn't understand it. And then I went back to it. I saw the video. There was a lot of disturbance with audio. Someone's Wi-Fi was dropping off. There was disturbance coming in from one of our rooms. So all these things play into it, especially the first 5 minutes. The first 5 minutes, if I've drawn you in and I've got all these things covered, then brother, I've got you on for the next 10 minutes if you find my content compelling, right? The first 5 minutes, hygiene is so important. And that's why I keep telling all our guys that please invest in this furry little creature, right? Because it makes such a difference to your audio. Tomorrow, if I put on a podcast, for me, I'll tell you from personal experience, and irrespective of how good the content may be, but if the sound that's coming on the podcast is hollow, that's the laptop wala sound or the phone wala sound, I'm not sticking around. I'm gone. So all these things, it's very crucial that all these things play into part while doing a podcast. And sorry, मैं कहाँ पता नहीं कहाँ चले गया. I forgot what you asked.
No, that's it though. This is the medium of the podcast.
By the way, this is why you lost 5 listeners. Huh? I just want to break it down for you. And for the remainder of you guys, Love you guys for staying on.
Yeah, I think they'll just stay on for you though. Like I think you have like a separate fan base on like just for yourself. Like for the interviews I've heard
Only
of yours.
dudes.
Yeah.
Only dudes. Only dudes. And not even dudes. I'll get even more desi. Only londe. हाँ लुखे लौंडे नहीं होते जो घर से निकलते हैं 3-4 और सिर्फ या दो टाइप्स जो होली में गुब्बारे में पानी डाल के लोगों पे फेंकते हैं
हाँ.
those ones की गाड़ी में चला के भाग जाओ. This is my audience because they resonate with that lukhaness that I bring out. I have a way of speaking. I'll tell you about this. Sorry. Initially, when I was doing TV, I was conforming to the way you speak on television.
Yeah.
आप एक तरीके से बोलें. So personality was aside, and this is the way I would speak. Then one day I saw myself on television. I said, "Yeah, I can't watch more than 5 minutes of this. What is this bullshit?" So if I can't watch more than 5 minutes of this, why will anyone else watch it? So I said, I need to bring my personality out. And to bring my personality out, easier said than done. It takes time. And a majority of the people you see on screen, on that TV behind me, or on the digital medium, many of them still can't bring their personalities out. The ones who can, and the ones who are comfortable with it, i.e. Gaurav Kapoor, he brings it out like this. It's his personality that's there. And he's bought into it and he's very comfortable with it, right? There are many who can't. But once my personality comes out, my content could be shit, brother. But if you like my personality, that's a reason to stay.
Yeah.
So that's the reason to stay, which is why all the lukhas of the world are coming to 420 grams. And I call them all lukhas also. They also call me Lukha Pandit. It's the lukhaness and this mawaliness.
But you can start a merch.
Connects.
You can start merch, right? You can become a proper influencer. You can start merch.
Yeah, they'll all leave. They'll Pandit. Then they're saying he's trying to sell money and he's trying to make money off us. Get lost. Lukhas only believe in freebies. Just remember that.
Fair enough. So you touched upon like let's move on to football a little bit and sports, I guess. So you touched upon in some of the interviews I've heard of yours and some of the conversations you've talked about like you always wanting to be in sport in some capacity. Like why was that? Like what is it about sport in your worldview?
It was a natural fit from very early on in life. No one in my family has been a sportsman. So I didn't have a natural outlet into sports, but sport found me. I found sports, and it just happened. So from a very early stage in life, my greatest pleasure at that time was not to sit in front of a TV, play a video game, or hang with friends. I would take a ball, I would go to a field, and if there's no one around, they say football can't be played alone. I used to play alone. I used to be juggling the ball. I used to be running with the ball. I used to take shots at goal and goal without net. तो ball पीछे जा रही है. वहाँ भागो, फिर ball लाओ, फिर ball को मारो. That kind of scene. It was, I wouldn't call it crazy passion, but it was just something that if I wouldn't do it, if it wasn't a part of my day, it wouldn't feel complete. बड़ा अजीब लगता था. I used to feel off sync. Those 2 hours, those 2.5, 3 hours was when I felt like complete freedom, right? And then when I'm playing or something, like I'll tell you, my very quickly you can find out a guy's ethos about a sport into what he loves about a sport. So koi bolega, I love goal scoring, right? So this guy is someone who likes the results. He likes following a team that is successful, right? Goal marne wali team. My ethos and my favorite thing about while playing the sport is getting the ball and finding a player between 2-3 gaps, finding that gap, the vision, right? And when I execute that pass, that sense of
fulfillment.
I don't know if it's euphoric. Yeah, fulfillment. It was not euphoric, but the fulfillment. Because euphoric is generally when you scored a goal and you're doing all sorts of shit. Side story: I never do celebrations. I find them a bit sissy like to suddenly do all of this and that goal hi mara koi badi baat nahi kari aapne yahan pe. So which is why I found myself with Arsenal, the team that never won anything, the team that continues to not win anything, the team that's constantly made fun of. But I fell in love with that team because of the way they played, because of the way you could see the vision of football they had, or the vision that their coach Arsene Wenger had.
Hmm.
It was pleasing to the eye. It was satisfying, and I've been a lifelong supporter ever since. And it's the same with football. It was a natural fit. All my life, until the time I went and played, I tried my hand at professional football. Up until then, I only had one thing in my head: ki I need to play.
Hmm.
I need to play, and all the signs up until then were fine because I was playing school level. I was captain of school. I got into college because of football. After college, I played in between college. I played Delhi state level. I played the highest level of Delhi state league. So you have a Ranji trophy, you have a Santosh trophy in football. I played all of that. So I was climbing the ladder, right, up until the highest level. But when I once I got to the highest level, I wasn't good enough. It's as simple as that. I wasn't good enough, and that's that. So I said, what's the next best thing? जिंदगी भर मैंने यही किया है. You can't suddenly expect me to turn around saying चलो जी बैंक में काम करते हैं, because that bank would have do-bored and how. So I said I need to find something I can do in sports, man. And my father helped me out there. He spoke to a channel called Z Sports. He called up the guy, cold called the guy. Let's just cold call the guy. Found out who this guy is and said, here's my son. He's played this much. He's a smart kid. You want to pay him, pay him. You don't want to pay him, don't pay him. Just put him in there and he'll pick up things very quickly. So and the guy was like stunned. He's like, ye kya ho raha hai yahan pe? I thought some normal call is coming. And before you know it, he's called me into his cabin. He's given me a job. I was on a salary of 6K, 6,000. And I've gotten into the media field, and the media field of which I had no idea about. People study about these things. I learned on the job how it works and so on. And I already told you how I'm a gold medalist when it comes to technology. So it was equally tough for me. But yeah, slowly but surely, I started learning, I started moving, and Z Sports, then NDTV, then I said I need to start doing sports on a regular basis because NDTV is a news channel. So I said, Chalo, Star Sports, I saw there was an audition for anchors. I went and auditioned. I got called up, and I was probably the only one who got called up from a large number of people that did all over India. And I spent 5 years at Star. Up until then, I was the football guy. Never used to watch cricket. Never a big fan of cricket. I don't know if you've come across these people, those types. What is cricket, bro? Shut up. So I was those ones. Pretty uncool guy liking cricket and all. Collars up and all that. But 2 years into my job, cricket gave me an opportunity. And I said I'd be the biggest fool if the biggest numbers in broadcast, the sport, which picks up the biggest numbers in broadcast and eyeballs, and possibly the most pressure, right? If I say no to this, I said yes to it, and I learned on the job. Because just remember this, doing a football show, I know there's about, say, I'm just giving you the difference, 40 people watching, assume. Doing a cricket show, 40 lakh.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's the difference. And you know that. And so the quality of the technician working in football, the quality of the producer working in cricket, completely different. My game of anchoring went up to another level because of working in cricket, not because of working in football. And if I have been able to do some work up until now, it's because I took that call of moving into cricket. I was lucky. And I was lucky enough to find people who persisted with me. अक्सर क्या होता है ना कि we're too hell-bent कि यार I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. Sometimes you just need to find yourself to be in that right atmosphere, in that right fit. And for me, the atmosphere at Star, it's not like it was a mollycoddling kind of atmosphere. It was as corporate as it can be. Everyone is looking over their shoulders कि ये मेरे को काट तो नहीं रहा है. Everyone is trying to find ways of stepping on you. But sometimes that adverse kind of atmosphere, it brings out the best of you. Yeah. It's like I became a kutta. I understood exactly what I had to do. And now that I've gotten into freelance, so I'm a gun for hire, I know exactly when someone is bullshitting me. I know exactly when someone is saying that. And I'm thick-skinned now. And yeah, it's a small world. And I'm glad I took that decision of moving to cricket.
Arjun, like, if I have to be honest, like when I used to watch the cricket shows and I see your face there, and I started seeing you on some football programs, I almost
You get.
I almost felt that you were a cricket guy who's actually moving into football, if that makes sense.
Really?
Because
Really?
I always saw you in cricket, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, true.
I didn't really know that you had a football mind or you always loved football. But then I heard you have conversations with Ranity sir and some of the other people you mentioned. And I'm like, oh, he's a football person. So that was pretty yeah,
No, that's true. And there's so many of them, man.
yeah.
It's funny how things pan out, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All my life, I'm like, "Abey, collar, shut up." यहाँ पे, right cut or whatever that bullshit is. I've learned on the job, buddy. There were times when I don't know field placements. I still don't know it properly, to be honest. I don't know how much of a smack on the foot is going to be for me. There are times when I don't know what's happened.
Right.
And so I'm left with the most basic of questions. Oh, how was that? Oh, that was good. Continue. But the more I've done it, the more I can read the game.
Yeah.
The more I can see the finer nuances of the game. And thus the conversation sort of picks up, or the level of the conversation picks up. Because remember something, as an anchor, the whole, if the show has come off as bad, and if the conversation is bad, presenter, right? See, because the thing is, you're doing a panel of, say, Virendra Sehwag, Zahir Khan, Ajay Jadeja, Sanjay Manjrekar, guys who played at the highest level, guys who can see small things and say, ye acha hua, ye bura hua, ye usne waise waise. But if I don't ask them the right question, and if I don't get it out of them, then they also won't bring it out. Unless you have someone who's been so into broadcast, like a Sanjay Manjrekar, who's done every facet of broadcast. He's anchored, he's sat behind, and he's tried to understand how things happen behind. So he understands these things. But more often than not, if there's a dull, drab conversation, it's the anchor to be blamed. There is no one else to be blamed. So yeah, you've got to be on point, man. And in fact, comments ki humne baat kar rahe the. Today only morning, I put out something where I was doing some tactical analysis of India Oman, their friendly they played. And one guy wrote over there the same thing. He said, I thought Arjun was only a cricket guy who does IPL 2 months in a year, but I didn't know he knows football. I said, Janab, hum to bachpan se football mein hi pale hue hain. So yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's funny how things pan out, man. Really funny, yeah. Strange.
What does this speak to the brilliance of someone like, I don't know, Harsha Bhogle or even Sanjay Manjrekar, who you've pointed out, that even though, for example, with Harsha, he isn't, let's say, hasn't played the game at the highest level, but is still on the comm boxes, but he's still there and he's still trying to understand. And what I find humbling is that he still admits if he doesn't know anything. And he almost says that he's not an expert on the game. He's just here to give sort of an opinion. So what do you think of that? Just being humble, as you pointed forward as well previously, that bringing your true self out on camera.
Yeah, see, as far as Harsha sir is concerned, we were in the bubble for 1.5 months. And he was doing, so here's the thing, man. He was English presenter. So, wow, Harsha Bhogle. And then they say Hindi presenter Arjun Pandit. What? A lot of people are going, kaun hai ye? Abey ye kaun hai? It's that kind of scene. And it still happens with me. It's not like wherever I go, people recognize me. Half the people don't recognize me. In fact, my friends are such slime balls. They know that. So when we go out somewhere, they janbooch ke, they form a group around me. And then if there's a new person or there's some ladies and all over there, they say, oh, I'm sure you know this guy. This guy's coming on TV, man. Look at him. He's a big guy. And then they're looking at me like this and saying, no, on my face. I'm like, yeah, I know. I understand. But going back to Harsha sir, humbling is a word. Yeah. I was having problems initially when I started the T20 leg of the series. I'm a slow starter. I kind of get in the groove after a while. And that's not always the greatest of things, because at that level, you need to go start, boom, you need to be in. So that's work in progress for me. Luckily, he took out time, he sat with me, and he said, look, work on these things, work on those things. When you look at me as a presenter and the way I talk, because I have said I'm going to embrace the lukhaness of myself, sometimes it can come across as arrogant. It can come across as cocky because of the way I'm talking. And he thought the same as well. He said, look, the viewer wants you to invite him. You need to come across as that you're inviting the viewer into your show, because Indians largely, we're an emotional bunch, right? Emotions rule number one for us in the driving force for anything. So he's saying probably cut down on the cockiness. I said, but then I told him, I said, sir, the thing is that if I cut down on the cockiness, then I won't be who I am. And when I won't be who I am on screen, it's always going to be on my head. And with me, it's never white, gray, black. A lot of people operate in gray. It's either white or black. I can't do the middle wala part. So then he understood that. He said, if that's the scene, then you just continue being who you are. And the more you are on screen, like habit, man, people will watch you and they'll learn to embrace you. Say 10 people are saying he's an arrogant, cocky, whatever. Probably over time will turn to just 4, will turn to 3. And, because with Harsha sir, he has longevity, man. So many years he's been doing it. It's insane, man.
Yeah.
And mind you, every com box has ego issues.
Yeah.
So if you're in a com box with former players, everyone could be speaking very flowery and nicely to all of you, but behind closed doors, there's always that eye saying, "Who's this guy?" Right? How is he commenting on a player? Right? But he is that authority, and he's done that not by continuously being on air. He's done that by continuously being on air, but that has happened because he's always kept himself informed.
Yeah.
So in the morning when we used to have breakfast, he would always say, okay, BCCI mein that meeting is happening. Some Ranji Trophy game is happening. He's telling me, oh, that's happening. This guy scored this much. If some AGM is happening, this is some politics. He's aware of everything, right? And it's a constant everyday process. You cannot ratta maro before a show and say, chalo ji, let's go do a show. You will screw up like you screw up for an exam. It has to be a constant process where you have to be aware of what's happening on the field, and you have to be aware of what's happening around the field or off the field. And once you make that as a habit, it'll easily, seamlessly come into your conversations. So you see the authority with which he speaks. So the person who's sitting across you, who might have taken 100 wickets, who might have scored 5,000 runs or whatever, knows that. And that authority comes out when I say it. So if I'm asking you a question, and if you're sitting a feet away from me, it's very easy for you to gauge courtesy of body language, tonality, and how I, ask you that question. Ki ye ratta maar ke aaya hai, or this guy actually knows what he's talking about. So with him, they know what he's talking about. So the honest conversation continues, and there's authority in the way he speaks. And I'm telling you, man, his process is insane. I won't be surprised if he continues for another 10 years. He'll be on, man. And because उनका एक लहजा है बोलने का, उनका एक तरीका है बोलने का. There's a
rhythmic flow. Yeah, it's like poetry.
There's a rhythmic flow, and wordplay is so good. Yeah. हम जैसे लोग जिन्होंने पढ़ाई नहीं करी है, तो हमारा वर्ड प्ले like what was happening? We're learning on the job. So he told me, he said, listen, don't be too hard on yourself. If you see what I'm doing, understand that I've done this for 15 years, 20 years. And so that is the product that you're seeing after 20 years.
Yeah.
You've been doing it for 2 years. It's impossible to suddenly compare the two. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Even Sanjay Manjrekar, man, he's a student. He is a student at heart because he always wants to learn, right? He always wants to learn. So not just about the game, what's happening broadcast, how you say something, how you answer questions, the language, right? So if there are times when I've done a show with him and I ask him a question and we've gone on to someone else or we've gone to break and he's liked the question I've asked, so he'll look at me and say, Maza aaya. But there are times when he's not liked it. He's a phika tha, kya bakwas tha Arjun? You need to go harder at me. He's the one guy who says to me, why aren't you coming hard at me? Why are you asking me these flowery bullshit kind of questions? Because he's not afraid of speaking his mind, right? So that's a welcome change. That's really nice. It's the same with Ajay Jadeja. Ajay Jadeja is someone, if you hear his analysis, he still operates like he's on the field. So वो नुस्खे देखते हैं, वो छोटी-छोटी चीजें देखते हैं. It's very difficult watching a match with these guys, man. Because I get so embarrassed here. Because we're sitting we have a room to ourselves after the show when we're watching the game, and these guys go, and I'm sitting there going, what do I say? I usually say, yeah. I don't know what the hell they're saying, and they know exactly. I don't know shit, but they know it's a process. It'll take time. So 5 years down the line, kya pata?
Yeah.
I could be, you know.
Yeah. No, but I've heard you talk about this in a previous interview that you didn't really, when you were at NDTV, you didn't really want to do the things that a journalist does, that go on and
Yeah, I
find,
did.
let's say, these things. But don't you feel like the things you're doing and the things you're doing at 420 grams, talking about these big issues, talking about what's happening in football, talking about all these things, that's the role of a journalist in itself, though, isn't it? That's actually trying to
Yeah.
investigate what you're trying to do. So maybe the reason you didn't want to, and I'm probably just putting words in your mouth, that you didn't want to do that stuff at NDTV because you probably thought that that end goal of achieving what you wanted to achieve wasn't there. But where you see that at 420 grams, because there is that digital space where you can probably achieve that.
True.
Is that there? Is that the thinking?
See, at NDTV, yeah, I get it. So my whole that comment on not wanting to do the usual stuff that a journalist does, because being a journalist, buddy, and to be a good journalist, anyone can be a journalist. I could sit at home and become a journalist, right? But to be a good journalist, I have to be on 24/7.
Yeah.
If I'm chasing a story or if I'm chasing something new, I didn't think I had that in me to do that. And I honestly did not have any interest other than sports. I mean, we can talk about what's happening and stuff outside, but for me, prime focus was always sports. And I felt I wanted to be in a place where, 24/7, you're focused on sports. So a sports channel was the only logical thing to do.
Right.
And as luck had it, I moved to a sports channel. Rahi baat 420 ki, yes and no. The yes being, it's refreshing that I can speak my mind and I can talk about these things because of the experience I've spent and I've put out on the field as a young cub when I was working at Z Sports, as a young kid trying to make it as a footballer. So I can relate to all those things, and because it's stuck here. तो कोई पढ़ाई की बात नहीं है, तो it's there, and I can always throw it at whoever's talking to me or putting across. If I'm trying to put across a point, the no being, I am that kind of journalist who's sitting at home. Seriously, to be a proper journalist, you have to get out on the field. You need to meet people. You need to talk to people. Right now, all the things I'm getting in football, I still make calls. I still try understanding what's happening in teams, or if some new story is broken. If let's say Bengaluru FC, they sacked their coach midway in this last ISL season, I made calls. I made about 4 or 5 calls, tried understanding what's happening. But, there's a difference in continuously being in the process as opposed to calling someone on that given day.
Yeah.
And people took those calls of mine because I've been in the game for the last 15 years. Right. So I've had relationships, or they've heard of me, or they know of me, who this guy is. So that is that. So it won't last too long. Because my friend and I were having this conversation, my co-creator, his name is Siddhant, and he's saying, I said, भाई ये कब तक हम free के ये घर के यहाँ पे चलाते रहेंगे? Because one of us will have to get out on the field. Right now, all the relationships we have with the batch that is Chetri and above. So all those guys, and of course a little, how do I say, younger than Chetri, because those guys have seen that we're close to these guys. So एक होता है ना कि if the captain is meeting this guy, and he's talking to
Maybe
this
there's
guy,
something
then
to
I should also give him respect. There is something to him, exactly. But the generation below that, which is now taking over and you coming in, they don't give a shit. So you got to do that entire thing again.
Yeah.
You've got to get on the field, earn their respect, earn their trust, and that only happens when you ask them logical questions. With the questions you ask them, they understand. Does this guy know the game? Does he understand the game or not? And so that's the scene. I don't know how much we'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to hire a young cub who can run around on the field, make sure get him vaccinated,
Yeah.
and send him wherever we can, and then he can feed us all the information, and then us old fossils can of course bato gyan. Batoing gyan is the easiest thing ever. Koi bhi baat sakta hai gyan. It is so easy to bato gyan. To become a gyani, if you fall into that trap, it is so easy to fall into that trap of becoming a gyani, which people do on Twitter, which is why I'm not on Twitter. I just don't like it one bit. It's not that. So the reason I'm not on Twitter is not because of all the hate and shit that's spewed around. It's because everyone is giving gyan.
Everyone's an armchair
And I
philosopher.
can't be, yeah, I can't be in a room full of so many gyanis, man. मेरे तो होता ही नहीं है. So, yeah. Let's see. Hopefully, we'll have to get out of this house. Right now, I can use the pandemic as an excuse.
Mhm.
But over time, yeah, I'd love to get out, because going to the field, taking out a story, talking to people, getting their trust, there's a different sense of satisfaction. जो हमने 420 grams शुरू किया है, we have not done it with any monetary intentions.
Mhm.
कि इतना पैसा कमाना है, इतने लोग कमाने. Our sole motive of starting 420 grams was satisfaction, right? We're guys who love Indian football. So we want to start a space because we feel there isn't a space in India right now where people are talking about the game we
Hmm.
love, we've played, we followed, and we feel we can contribute there because we've been a part of it. And that is our sole motive. Who knows, over the years, we might, of course, try getting into the whole numbers game, try getting in
Mhm.
people to sponsor. But our number one reason for getting onto 420 grams is satisfaction. The day that satisfaction runs out, we'll probably have a rethink. Do we want to be a part of it? Because it's, for both of us, this is not our number one job.
Yeah, yeah.
I have other ways of running my house. This does not run my house. For my co-creator also, it doesn't run his house. But we're doing it, and possibly that's why हम खुल के बोल भी रहे हैं
Hmm.
कि we have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
करा दो बंद भाई, मत दो इंटरव्यू हमें, कोई बात नहीं. You know, कोई नहीं, देखी जाएगी. So that's the scene.
And yeah, I think that's the reason why it's doing so well in like the people who do come and stay connected with your content. Would you, though, like looking long term though, like do you feel that you'd always want to be, let's say, a presenter, but maybe later down the line transition into becoming a, for example, a football journalist or something that you're doing right now with 420 grams? Like, you talked about sponsorships, but making it a much grander thing, because genuinely, as someone like who loves sport and who loves Indian football as well, I don't see too many platforms out there to be who talk about the game, just simply talk about the game, or even, let's say, newspapers who report upon
Very
it.
few.
So I think that's a market that you guys can explore.
Yeah, totally. We thought that's an empty space, man.
Mm.
There are not too many people there. And we've been at it now for a close 5-6 years.
Yeah.
We started off as just two guys who would consume shit, put out a phone and chat shit. Two guys who were doing that. Eventually, the professionalism came in, and we started growing. And we've got NewsClick behind us, who's a digital portal.
Yeah.
And they've been kind enough to give us their studios. That changed the game completely.
Yeah.
So audio is better, studio quality is better, and so on. So the person who's watching you is thinking, यार ये तो थोड़ा प्रोफेशनल सेटअप लग रहा है, अच्छा लग रहा है. ये नहीं कि कोई मतलब कहाँ पे एंड्रॉइड का रिकॉर्ड बटन दबा दिया और चलो जी गाथा गावा. Over the years, I don't know. I'd love to be. I feel my presenting journey's only started.
Right.
So that thought hasn't come to my mind.
Plus,
I feel
Arjun,
my presenting journey is.
sorry to cut you off, but like, isn't it two different jobs?
हाँ जी.
Isn't it two different jobs? You were just talking about it, that like right now, to become a proper journalist, you have to get on the ground and actually speak to the people, build relationships. So that's a job in itself. And then maybe to expect you to become a presenter along with it, maybe that's asking too much, isn't it? So that's the thing, right? At least.
I don't think it's asking too much, to be honest. So I'll tell you, as a freelancer, if I am working close to 150 days a year,
yeah,
I'm sorted. I'm sorted, man. 150, 200 days. And 150, 200 days, that means I've had a good year in terms of work, right? तो बाकी के जो आपके 165 दिन हैं, and as a presenter, unlike other people, I'm not working 9 to 5. I'm not working 10 hours. I might be working 10 hours on, say, 100 of those days. But as a presenter, my job is to go in there, chat some shit, make it look relatable, and get out, right? Then उसके बीच में जो मैं अपना काम कर रहा हूँ, in the build up to that, like I was talking about Harsha sir, that is the time consuming part.
Yeah.
Where I'm keeping myself aware of what's going on right now, because of our daughter, and because as she continues to grow older, and God bless her, her sleeping time is going down during the day. So a girl who started sleeping thrice a day gave us 3 windows to go on the net, to watch TV, to read something. Now that window is only once. and you're so tired in that one window also. I quickly rush to the gym to do some workout or something or the other. थके थके कर रहे हैं workout क्योंकि और कोई time है ही नहीं. So as a result, I'm not being able to keep up with what's going on. I haven't been able to watch any of the India games because if I put the TV on, then my daughter is watching television, and I don't want that much screen time for her. So yeah, that is there, but it's easy, man. It's not that difficult, bro. It's easy to connect the two and to combine the two and continue. I've seen Harsha do it. He's working for several portals.
Yeah.
He writes, he's doing podcasts, he's hosting, he's commentating. So he's juggling a lot of things in that one hand of his. As for 420 grams, yeah, to take it to another level, we have to get on the field. Can I go on the field? I don't know. If I'm not going, it's not because I can't do it. It's probably because I'm lazy. That is prime reason. So if I can get out of that laziness, it's certainly doable. And but I probably think we'll take the easier route. We'll find a young cub and we say, "Chalo ji jawan, जाओ वहाँ पे field पे काम कर, intern, काम करो, get 2 coffees in the process, and if the work is not good, we're not paying you also." So that kind of scene.
Yeah.
But my anchoring journey is just starting, man. It's only I've only started anchoring high level content or tournaments. It's only been 2 years, and I foresee this as a 10 to 15 year journey.
Wow.
Easy.
Yeah.
जब तक सर पे बाल हैं तब तक चलते रहेंगे. जब आपने देखा इतने बाल आ गए 5 साल बाद, तो आप कहना इसने ट्रांसप्लांट करवाया पहली बात. हाँ, ट्रांसप्लांट वाला एंकर बन के मैं बैठ जाऊंगा वहां पे. But I plan to be here for another 15 years. If I don't shoot myself in the foot, which I can do, then I can. I plan to stay here for much longer and continue 420 as well. I want to go 420 as well. My friend wants to grow 420 as well. And let's see, man.
That's encouraging
it's a
to hear.
slow grind. Yeah, 420 is a slow grind, man. 420 is a slow grind. You can't expect overnight changes. I can't suddenly wake up and see that from 1700 we've gone to 17,000. It won't happen. I wake up and I see we got 10 new subscribers.
Good day.
We got 15 new subscribers. Yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day. Exactly. So we've got used to it, and we've got used to running it on the side, not giving it step brotherly treatment. But say like in these days when I'm not doing anything, there is time till the IPL. I start my IPL work on the 16th of April. So I have about 20 more days.
Right.
So I dedicate all of that to 420. Make sure the handles are running. Try doing at least 2 pieces of content in a week, and so on. Yeah.
So something I've been seeing more and more on let's say social media platforms is these sporting personalities creating content, which is something I really like. For example, I don't know if you've seen the content that Ravi Ashwin's creating. I mean, Akash Chopra has a really big YouTube channel. Ashwin's, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what do you make of that? Because I feel that more and more, let's say, sporting personalities should be getting into, let's say, the content creation space, because it just allows them a larger space to express their ideas, something they probably haven't been able to, especially looking at someone like Ashwin, because when you see him playing that he thinks about the game a lot. He has ideas of how to structure it, how to go about with it. What do you think about it? Like, because obviously you worked with these people.
So from a selfish anchor perspective, I'll tell them, yeah, aren't you done? Like, how much more do you want? Abhi, leave that for us, bro. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, how many wickets
are you getting into this shit? Yeah, like I remember this was in Delhi a couple of years back. I think this was around the time Ashish Nehra had retired, so they had done a T20 in Delhi.
Oh yeah, I was at the game.
There was a party at a hotel.
I was at the game. That was.
Oh, you were at the game? Yeah. That was there, right?
You remember the interview?
Day, that night after.
Sorry to cut you off.
Which one?
The interview he gave prior to the game, I think, when they asked him that, do you think that the people chanting your name would be able to hear, the people at your house would be able to hear it? Because, yeah, probably, because they live very close by. And he said that I still don't have a smartphone. I still don't have a smartphone. I see
he still doesn't have. He still doesn't have. He's a very funny character, man.
Yeah,
he's a very
great,
honest and nice character.
Yeah,
very, very nice. I spent a considerable amount of time with him in West Indies when I'd gone to do India versus West Indies for Sony, and very chilled out guy, very nice guy, and he is exactly the way you see him on television. There's no gray area. It's
Yeah.
black or white. It's as simple as that. So that night, there was a party in the hotel, and so we all of us landed up, and everyone is there, and we were having a conversation, and Mr. Kohli was there as well. And at that time, their sports honors. I don't know if you've heard of the sports honors. And when they were trying to start their sports honors, where they would, celebrate Indian sporting heroes across different sports. And Kohli is the driving force behind that, and his team is the driving force behind that. And he was saying, "यार मैं सोच रहा हूँ, मुझे कह रहे हैं कि मैं एंकरिंग कर लूँ." I said, "भाई, what are you doing यार? हमारे लिए कुछ तो काम छोड़ दो यार. सर्दी हो गई, सब कुछ लेने जा रहे हो वहाँ पे, लड़कियाँ पागल हो रही हैं, ये हो रहा है, वो है, हमारे लिए कुछ तो काम छोड़ो." So he was laughing then, and my sentiment remains the same. But from a viewer's perspective, I can understand why it's so nice. Akash is very hardworking, and I'm guessing I haven't had the opportunity to spend time with Ashwin, but from whatever you can see from afar, he comes across as a guy who, like you said, thinks. So he thinks about his content. It's there are two types. One is a celebrity who's saying, "अबे मैं celebrity हूँ, मैं जो भी डालूंगा बंदा बैठ के देखेगा, चाहे सर ना पैर कुछ ना हो." Right? Doesn't work like that. You could be the biggest celebrity. If you're not compelling enough to hold that viewer, he will shut you off. So Ashwin, Akash, here are guys who think not only about the game, but think about the content they're putting out, how they're putting out, how much to talk about, what to talk about. And when you have two players having a conversation, it's like, sorry, I'm name dropping like that. I think I've name dropped like full on in this show, no, by the way. We were doing a show with on the recent Sony series, and Zahir, me and Ajit were doing a show in between one of the tea breaks. And usme hi BCCI, what they started doing is they started getting one player interviewing another player after the game. They're putting it out on their social handles. So they saw Ashwin had done an interview with all the new guys, Natarajan, Washington, and there was a nice fun conversation. And we came out, and Zahir, first thing he said, you can't match when a player is talking to a player, because that there's a bit of a guard when you're talking to someone from outside. That guard is not there, and that comes across in the conversation. I said, "Ye kya matlab hogi hai? That means you have a guard when you're talking to me." He said, "Do you want me to say it on screen right now?" I said, "No, it's okay. We'll move on." So yeah, so when a player is talking to a player, it's always, and I can understand that, because you know what, the kind of scrutiny cricketers have, and how every move of theirs is dissected. I don't blame them if they have a guard to any unknown face or any unknown person asking them a question. And it takes time. It's a very human thing that if I don't know you, I will be a little guarded. 8 out of 10 people will be like that. Probably 2 might not. But 8 out of 10 will be like that. They'll have a guard. And over the course of time, if I know you and if I trust you in what you're talking about, then that guard slowly starts to come down. Which is why the journalists who've been on the field for a long period of time, and I'm talking about scribes, the print journalists, these are the guys who actually get the real juice out.
Yeah.
Not the TV guys. The real juice comes from the print guys, because they've been on the field 15, 20 years. So you see that same face there on the fence who's writing, right? You see that same face who's coming to the press conference. So there's a trust factor that develops.
Connection, yeah.
And no one needs to talk about it, saying, "I trust you." It just happens, right? So yeah,
You're a football guy,
it's
right?
great for.
You're a football guy. So it's the same thing with like managers as well, right? In press conferences. Like, so I'm a big Liverpool fan. So I've seen Klopp talk about it. So he knows the set of So he knows a few journalists who ask him the good questions, or the questions that he generally gets posed at press conferences. And those are the questions he replies to. And he identifies those people who are probably new and who are probably coming for the first time and asking a novel question. So yeah, there is something to that. Yeah.
There is, of course, man. It's a very human thing. I'm in that, because when they're going for these press conferences, they know that every word of what I'm saying is going to be scrutinized. If they don't know it, then the people who are managing them will make sure that they drill it into their head.
Yeah, the media managers.
Their managers and so on. Oh, painful. So And it's a love-hate relationship, huh? Journalists, anchors, media managers, very flowery and all, but अबे क्या बकवास कर रहा है and all that kind of scene.
Yeah.
So they know it, and like habit, they learn the art of giving a diplomatic answer when they have to. And that comes with habit. That comes with facing the camera. No matter how much you prepare off camera, you will be stumped at times, but you'll grow. You'll grow. And that's the scene. I don't blame them, man, because people take out so much shit from what they say.
Yeah.
And sometimes we overanalyze things. And it's normal. कल को आपने मेरे साथ इंटरव्यू किया और मैंने कुछ बड़ा छाप दिया और आप उसको पढ़ रहे हो, आप कहोगे यार ये तो my intention was not this only, but this guy's misread whatever I was saying. Right? So I don't blame them. And cricket has become such a how do I say it? Is behemoth the word? That it's an industry in itself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The media is a separate industry. It churns out, and remember this: all of this content that's coming out is based on 14 people. 14 to 15 people. इन 15 लोगों के बलबूते पे आपकी ये फैक्ट्री चल रही है. So if they are wary with who they talk to, at the risk of coming across as diplomatic, then it's a risk they're willing to take. And it's fine. Yeah.
What do you think if so I don't know if you've heard about the model of The Athletic. So The Athletic are these it's a
I love it. I subscribe.
Yeah, I'm a big subscriber as well. So what do you think of that particular platform? So and how they
I love it, man.
journalism, sports journalism.
Yeah, I think Athletic when you talk about game changers and you talk about the sports platform and the journalism and broadcasting, I think Athletic will be at the forefront because they've come at a time when हमें बोला जा रहा है कि people are not reading.
Yeah.
They don't like reading long form articles, right? Athletic goes completely different. They're giving you long form articles, but they're giving you detailed stuff which you don't find on a YouTube channel, you don't find on a TV channel. And it's the same thing, right? It's honest stuff.
Yeah.
So if I'm reading it, I have liked one of your articles, I have invested in your articles, you've got me, brother.
Yeah.
The Athletic subscription is not cheap.
It's worth it.
It's expensive.
But it's worth it, I think.
Yeah, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
But lukhe rehte hain. So because I had the Athletic subscription, they gave me the option of sending it to 5 more people.
Okay.
Who could, at a nominal fee, join on. I sent it to 5 of my friends. You know what they said? They said, bro, just give us your password. We'll use it. And these are guys who are doing really well in life. Padhe likhe log. But that. But if anyone is, whoever's listening and all, like Ashan said, it's totally worth it. Long form conversations, in-depth conversations. And I think that is the model going ahead. And उन्होंने कुछ नया नहीं किया है. They have just said कि earlier क्या हो रहा था कि suppose you're saying कि यार we can only write 100 words. So there's only as many words you can fit in. They said screw that shit, bro. Let's go back to the basics. Let's give you in-depth stuff about everything, right? So I read a nice article right now on Andy Gray and who's the other one? The 2 commentators are ousted because of whatever they're saying off camera about a woman lineswoman, sorry.
Right.
And I read the entire thing, how it panned out, how that day panned out in the Sky office, how they were taken out, or how the first offense did not make that much of a difference. But it stayed with me. So when you read a long form article that is
well put,
insights and everything, it is really well put forward. It stays with you.
Yeah.
So I don't need to read it again.
See,
I know what happened then. And yeah, sorry.
I think you touched upon it really well, though. They've changed the game totally. So, like, I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I read a lot of James Pearce. He's like one of the premier Liverpool journalists who signed on for The Athletic. And I was listening to an interview of his when he moved from, I think, the Liverpool Echo to the journalist to The Athletic. He said that previously he went to the game with his laptop. He wasn't even consuming the game totally because he knew that he had to put a match report out. He said that once he's joined The Athletic, there is just so much time. Like his editor tells him that you want a story about Sadio Mane, fly to Senegal and actually speak to the people who you want to speak to. It doesn't matter if it takes a week, but it has to be good. And I think that just shows with the quality.
But that's a lot of investment, huh?
Of course, but they
That's
trust.
a lot of investment.
But they trust in
See,
his quality, though, right? In James Pierce's quality or
no,
whoever's
true.
quality.
I completely agree that. See, the thing is, then one must also remember that the Athletic is probably operating on a big budget,
Of
right?
course.
Whoever their investors will be, and I'm sure they're not making money right now, but they've sort of planned for the future. कि इतने साल तक इतना पैसा है. Not everyone can afford to do that, and
Yeah.
that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah.
कि कोई कह रहा है कि जी एथलेटिक्स 100 रुपए पे चल रहा है, मैं 1 रुपए पे चलूंगा. So how do I give you something at that 1 rupee? That 1 rupee, what do? I can give you a match report which I can watch on television. I can try deciphering a quote I have seen million miles away on a television to say he has said this, he has said that. So I think he's trying to imply this.
Yeah.
He might not try to imply this. And so that's where false narratives and journalism comes into play.
Yeah.
But eventually it's that only. Yes, you must applaud them for giving it the time and they're doing a justice to a story. By flying someone down to Senegal to talk about Sadio Mane, tell me about his family, tell me where he came from, then talk about how he's adjusted to life in England and how the two come together. But not everyone can do that.
Yeah.
But I think people will slowly start identifying that. So those types, जो आपको छोटा मतलब देंगे, they'll probably be the types who people go to for results.
Yeah.
Result में क्या हुआ? Liverpool won, Arsenal lost as usual. Aubameyang, whatever, result. But I will subscribe to some places which give me long form reads, which give me a full detailed analysis of what's going on. And slowly but surely, abhi aadat nahi hai logon ko subscription pay karne ki. It's coming into it and it'll take time. And the Athletic will be showing you that this is a model that can work because see, we might consider it to be a success.
Right.
But as a business, is it a success? You can't still say it. As a business, how do you say it's a success? So I'm put 10 rupees and I'm making 100 rupees out of it. Successful business.
Yeah.
Right now, how is the Athletic operating? Right now, the Athletic is operating on investor money, on large parts of huge money that's come in. And they're using their resources to tell the world that this is what we are doing. And this is what you will get, which you will not get everywhere else. So subscribe to us. Once they subscribe, this thing goes up. It exceeds the amount of money they're making, which will happen over time, hopefully. It'll take a lot of time as well. Then you can say that that model is a success. So don't be surprised if tomorrow the Athletic is not making any money. Why is the Athletic putting out constantly, if you see, they're dropping their rates, saying you can now subscribe to us for so many these things. 3-month subscription you can take for this much amount. Because clearly they want more people to come in.
Yeah, probably low engagement.
Like we touched upon at the start, content and business are always at loggerheads. And बात balance की आ जाती है कि आप business चलाने के लिए कितना content को compromise करोगे और आप अपने business model को जो आपका है so that your content, the ethics and everything are the same and you're not doing a disservice to your viewer. How much of that are you willing to let go and how much of that are you willing to keep? And it's the coming together of two which will form a successful model.
Though, Arjun, I totally agree with that. Like, I think that there'll always be a space for, let's say, I mean, I don't like it, but clickbait journalism, what's currently happening for the most part, I think that's always going to be there. But then again, I also feel that there's also this real, like they really see through the bullshit, be it however big a corporation you are, be it if you are the New York Times or the Washington Post. I've seen news organizations as big as those do mistakes like that. I think there'll come a point where people will just get fed up with things that are being put forward. And if it's not of good quality, then they wouldn't read it. Like the way I consume news is that I don't consume newspapers at all. I just don't, because I know that it's going to be the same. So I know I have a few independent journalists I look up to, and I generally get my news from them. I go to them if I need to know something, and that's how I get my news. I think we may just go back to the whole previous model of, even if it may not give you the whole spectrum of news, for example, how it used to be with political parties. There used to be a political party who had its own newspaper, and then that's how people would get their news. But that ensure that they were still getting news. What's happening now is that it's too bipolar in my sense. It's just too toxic.
Yeah, I mean, toxic for you could be content for another. right?
Right.
सबसे बड़ी गलती that we can do in life is to think that we're all alike. So if 5 of us consume a certain kind of content, we're saying, oh, this is great content, this is perfect for everyone. You might just find 15 other people who say, what is this shit?
Yeah.
What's this bullshit? Right? So the people who are doing all of this, you have to give them credit. For the people who you're right, the word is toxic, but on the base, but I think it's a brilliant model in terms of business, that they see that this model is selling.
Right.
Why has every news channel become pa, 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 pa? I've worked in a news channel. From a business point of view, these models, they're killing it.
Yeah.
So if that means you have to be a puppet of the government in power, so government spending comes in, government ads comes in. Government ads is a big revenue, a big source of revenue. When NDTV went against, or NDTV is against, government ads were pulled off. So that's a large chunk of the revenue gone, right? So up with journalism, with stuff you're putting out, you're always at loggerheads. Like I said, business, कितना आप compromise करोगे, या कितने values को आप compromise करोगे to run your business successfully. And in some ways I kind of agree with it, कि यार कल को मैं अगर ठेला लगा रहा हूँ, संतरे बेच रहा हूँ, पर मेरे संतरे कोई खरीद नहीं रहा है, हाँ, तो भाई मैं चाहे दुनिया के सबसे बेहतरीन संतरे ला रहा हूँ, वो what's the point? My business is a failure.
Yeah.
I haven't found the way of selling it. And if that means I have to adopt another way, which is grabbing people's attention, and it's getting people to come and buy my santaras, which sounds damn weird, buy my santaras. Then my model is working. You might not like it. 10 might not like it, 15 might not like it, but I found 25 who do. And I'm happy with that.
Listen, Arjun,
So,
this has been great. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can do this sometime again in the future. Just before you leave, if there's anything you'd like to leave the viewers with, maybe where they can find you on social media or whatever.
You cannot find me on social media. Don't try finding me on social media. I am on Instagram, Pandit599. But over there, you'll generally see me putting out shit I'm doing with my daughter. Very rarely do I put out stuff I'm doing on air, even though my wife is always on my case. Put out something. That's the game. You're in this game. I don't like that game.
Become a reeler. Or whatever they call
Become an influencer.
Influenza.
Become an influencer, and I will jump from the 15th floor before becoming an influenza. So that is the only place I'm on. If you like Indian football, if that's your jam, do follow 420 grams. It's on YouTube. We're on Instagram as well. I couldn't get 420 grams because, as expected, a lot of other narcotics-based people have used it. So we are 420 grams with 5 S's, right? I didn't want to use the underscore, that kills the name. So we're 420 grams, like that. And you can keep catching me on television. I'll be doing the IPL for Crick Buzz.
Looking forward to that,
yeah. It was fun chatting with you, Ishan. So it was fun, and it was good having a conversation with you, man. The makings of a future podcaster, anchor.
Hopefully,
You have your own thoughts, man, and you put them out there, and that is step one. That's such a crucial step. A lot of people don't have their own thoughts. If they have a viewpoint or a certain thinking that they're aligned to, they're not able to put it out there. I don't know if it's scared. Scared could be one part of it. The other part is I don't realize only. पता ही नहीं मुझे कि मैं ऐसा कर रहा हूँ कि मेरे को अगर बोलना है मैं जानता ही नहीं मैं कैसे करूँ. Sometimes I've gone on there and I've done shit, but that's not who I am.
Right.
But I'm fine with it. I think I've gone and done a good show. So I don't even realize that that's happening. So stick to that, man. I think it's really nice. Have that viewpoint, and I feel that curve is kind of is shifting now towards honest conversations, and honest opinions. Is because more and more people like you are getting into it, and people like you are getting attracted to not what's happening on that stupid TV screen, but to the small little screen that we're talking on. And it's again slow grind, especially if you talk of the Indian demographic. But I think it's on. And
see, that's what I was saying.
5-6 years.
Sorry to cut you off, but that's what I was putting forward with when you said that even if it's just 1,700 people right now, So I like what's happening in the West, because I consume a lot of podcasts and I listen to Joe Rogan and others, and they speak about this, is that almost every other celebrity has a podcast. So, and even some of them aren't good at it, but they have that fan base. And even if it's a small set of people, that's their community. So they don't have to go on to, let's say, Twitter, Instagram, and find a community there. They know that this is a place where people can come, engage with their ideas, which I think will generally be the case, then rather than having larger corporations have bigger fan following.
True.
I don't know.
True. It's वही है ना कि that space for them is satisfaction. Because कल को उसका 9 to 5 जॉब एक्टर का है, वो satisfaction नहीं मिलती कि जब मैं खुल के बोल रहा हूँ and I'm talking about what I believe in. Because as a human being and what the way this world is that we operate in, everyone has a viewpoint.
Yeah.
Everyone has a way of thinking, and it could be different from the one from the other and so on. And if we find an outlet to put it out there, an honest conversation, and you have people who engage, maybe not in that viewpoint, but engage in saying, okay, here's a guy who has a different way of thinking. Here's a guy who has a different way of thinking. Let's chat. Not let's fight. Let's chat. Then it'll give you satisfaction. Having said that, here's the flip side. That place starts with satisfaction, right? 1,700 subscribers. Kal ko I touch 17 crore. A corporation will come.
Yeah.
तो ये फ्री का भी माल चल रहा था. यहाँ पे suddenly 100 रुपए आ गए. 100 रुपए आ गए. Then I have to take the corporation's guidelines into perspective. And that is where the clash happens.
But Arjun, don't you feel if you become, let's say, as big as a 17 crore personality, let's say, someone like a Joe Rogan, someone like a Joe Rogan, I don't know if you've heard about his Spotify deal. Like
I have, it's a massive deal.
Yeah. So like the only reason, I don't think he's short on money by any stretch of the imagination, but the only reason he would want to go to Spotify over YouTube is because YouTube was restricting him in a way. Because I don't know if you know that he wasn't allowed to bring some guests on who he wanted to bring on, let's say, to talk about the virus or to talk about some other, let's say, controversial views that the media may think of. But Spotify almost afforded that opportunity to him. And then that's something he'd be willing to take. So I think,
So here's the thing. Kalko, if in the audio space, there's a scam. Kalko in the audio space, something doesn't work. Spotify is in direct line of fire. And he's doing a show for Spotify. That's where the clash will erupt. Right? So Mr. Rogan, who speaks the way he does in the conversations that happen, will he then have to toe the Spotify line? Because at the end of the day, Spotify is playing a large part in what his show is doing.
Yeah.
Financially. Yeah. Right? So that's where the clash happens. What do I do? What do I not talk about? But you're right. In a sense, I know I'm going a little too aage.
No, it's fine.
But there are corporations who are coming in, who are investing in free speech, who are investing in honest conversations, who are investing in long-form conversations. And that's a plus. That's a positive.
Yeah. And that's great to hear, man, especially for people like the both of us and the things we're engaged in. So
yeah, bad luck to all the viewers. No? We're going to be around for 3 hours. Huh? It's called so whenever I chat a lot on camera, it's a lot of fun doing a show with Vrinda Sehwag. It keeps you on your toes always. And say I've done something and I've said a lot of things and I haven't come to the experts. He looks at me like, Pandit, कितना footage खाएगा? मैंने कहा, हम यहाँ footage नहीं खाएंगे तो कहाँ खाएंगे? This is our time.
Yeah.
So yeah, footage खाना is an art.
Yeah, it is.
I will forever do well in it.
No, man. This has been great. Hope we can do this sometime again, man. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ishan. Thanks so much for having me, and all the very best, man.